story is a bit disturbing. I mean, the disciples seem like jerks. They didn't want to be bothered by that raucous Canaanite woman. They wanted her to shut up and go away. And even Jesus surprises us, and not in a good way. You know, it's disappointing to see Jesus just ignoring the Canaanite woman. In the beginning of this encounter, he kind of reminds us of ourselves when we're not being our best selves, when we are tired, when we are fed up, or just don't want to be bothered by anyone. You know, as Christians, we affirm Jesus Christ is fully divine and fully human. He walked the earth in a fragile body like yours and mine. He got tired sometimes. He got aggravated. You know, shortly before this happened, he had been arguing with some of the Pharisees. And you might recall that the Pharisees were one of the most observant sects of the Jews. The Pharisees were focused on ritual purity, what they ate, how they washed, and they avoided contact with anyone who wasn't a Jew, because Gentiles were considered unclean. Pharisees wanted to be holy, so they thought they would be holier by staying away from things and people who were unclean. Now, the Pharisees had called out Jesus and his disciples for not washing their hands the right way. So Jesus called them out on all their hypocrisy, pointing out that they were more concerned with man-made laws than following God's commandments. Jesus argued God is more concerned about what comes out of us than what we put into us. God is concerned with the purity of our hearts. And this is revealed in how we treat other people. So after arguing with them, Jesus was tired. He decided to get away from it all and just took along his inner circle, the disciples. They headed up north and went into the territories of Tyre and Sidon. And then this woman, this Canaanite woman, she shows up. She wasn't one of their people, which isn't surprising because they had left Jewish territory and were now in the land of the Gentiles. But she somehow knew who Jesus was. She kept shouting and shouting to get his attention. Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. She persisted in asking for help. So Jesus finally speaks to her. He explains that he's on a mission and was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I mean, this explanation seemed perfectly reasonable to Jesus and the disciples, because the Jews were oppressed at that time. They were under the thumb of the Roman Empire, and their own leaders, they had fake kings, illegitimate priests, and hypocritical religious leaders. Their own leaders had led them astray. They were lost and they needed Jesus. But the woman wasn't persuaded by this explanation because she was on her own mission. Her daughter was being tormented by a demon and she wanted her to be free. So she persisted. She got right in front of Jesus, knelt down, and begged for help. Jesus seemed kind of rude, telling her, you know, it's not fair to take the children's food, meaning the children of Israel, and to throw it to the dogs, meaning the Gentiles. But she persisted. She clapped right back at him, telling Jesus, well, even dogs get to eat crumbs fall from the master's table. So using her wit and faith, she opened Jesus up to broader possibilities in his ministry. I think he realized in dismissing her for being a Gentile, he was being like those Pharisees he had just lambasted. So he did as she asked and freed her daughter from the demon. Now, hearing this story as 21st century Americans, we probably think, oh, we would have been a lot nicer, a lot more welcoming to that woman. But would we? You know, it seems like tribalism is on the rise in our country. And many of us are not open to people that we don't consider to be part of our tribe. I'm not really talking about ethnicity here, although it plays a part. Our tribes, at this moment in time, seem to be made up of people who see and experience the world like we do. We don't really want to hear from people who think differently than us. I bet I'm not the only person who has unfollowed someone on social media because their posts just started grating on me. You know, we consider those who live a different kind of life than our own. We don't use the word unclean, but we find something that we don't like about that. We avoid them. We even demonize people who hold different political views. And whether we're progressive or conservative, most of us are so sure that our viewpoints on social problems are correct that we no longer wish to discuss things. We just want people who are not in our political tribe to shut up and go away. We unconsciously seek out news, whether it's on CNN or Fox News, because we want to consume media that comforts us, that affirms our point of view, rather than being challenged by different points of view. See, we can be as close-minded as the disciples were in this story, wishing to silence others because we secretly assume that we are holier than thou. But the Canaanite woman, she had courage and she persisted. She refused to be canceled. She engaged Jesus in debate. And even after being compared to a dog, she persuaded him to acknowledge the humanity of her daughter and her people. Jesus's eyes and heart were opened by this woman. She expanded his beloved community to include her daughter, and all the Gentiles. By the end of the Gospel of Matthew, after his resurrection, Jesus, as he was giving his final instructions to these same disciples who had rebuffed this woman, he told them, go and make disciples of all nations and baptize them into a new family where all can be beloved children of God. Because the Canaanite woman persisted, Jesus recognized her great faith. Despite his resistance, she knew about him, and she trusted that he would have compassion for her and her daughter and use his divine power to help them. Well, our world today is in need of help. We need to share the gifts of love and grace that we've received through Christ. If we truly want to be a part of creating beloved communities, like Jesus and his disciples, we sometimes need to leave our comfort zones. Now, some of us have gotten to the point we don't even want to talk to our own relatives, that they hold different political views than us. You know, we want to avoid people who are anyone who might aggravate us. But this isn't the path to discipleship. See, we need to be open to encounters and to relationships with those we assume belong to a different tribe. And we need to be willing to listen deeply, to really try to understand the points of view of people who don't see things the same way that we do. You know, if we truly want to form beloved communities, we need to pray that the Holy Spirit will help us to see every person as a beloved child of God, whether they're wearing a MAGA hat or a Black Lives Matters t-shirt. We don't have to agree with everyone's point of view on every issue. I'm not saying that at all. But we do need to recognize our common humanity, and we need to stop demonizing other people. And like Jesus, we need to be open to being persuaded by the logic of others. None of us has all the answers to the problems that this world is facing, but all of us are in need of love and healing. Thanks to this woman who persisted, we are reminded that God's love and grace are for all people, not just for our own tribe. So may God's kingdom come, may God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven.